Okay, so for week 5, for our Monday night items, we're starting something new that I talked about in week 4 just a little bit, is that I'm updating this course to now include Bootstrap 5. So what we're gonna do this week is you're gonna do Bootstrap 5 crash course this week and again on Thursday. I think we'll get about an hour through this course, and very much like what you saw on the HTML and CSS, I'm going to have you do commits, okay, at certain time points in the video. So I actually just got through setting up this, so I want to talk about it. And I'm using Media this time, and I really like his channel. I definitely recommend if you probably may know about it, but if you don't, here's of course the video that we're going to be doing. And I want to show you just because he walks you through how to do what's called the CDN, and the CDN is really good to understand that instead of having these files locally, you're actually just going to reference them out on the web. But I think he does a pretty good job introducing it. But I want to show you what it looks like. At least in that once you get through almost that first setup. So in this case, you're adding a new directory into your private. Oh, actually, that should be lectures. My bad. So when you do this, it should be in your lectures folder, and then it'll be called Bootstrap. And in there, you create the index.html. He walks you through how to set up a standard HTML document through using what we'd already talked about last week, which is some of the built-in shortcuts for VS Code and really any editor. And then he has you create a style.css and then an image directory. Now he does just briefly talk about, so I went and found it, some images he's going to use on a undraw.co. So I went out there and looked, and I think it'd be actually fun to choose some of your own. Now, SVG is a type of image that we'll be talking about a little bit later in the course. But these are what we call vector versus bitmaps on something like this. So he's using SVGs, which are fine to use. They're actually generally very performant because they do flex based on the screen display, which is really awesome. They just do a better job of handling different displays. You could do PNGs, but we'll talk about images later. But I just want you to know when he does this, he actually already has that folder set up. But I want you to know because of our requirement of our course, what that looks like. Now, the other thing, and I don't think I've really talked about this too much, but if you're taking my 93 class, you already know about something I use on VS Code, and it's called Live Server. And again, you don't have to use this. I'm just going to show you that I do, that I have installed into my local system, or you could actually just use the extensions here and install Live Server. And what that does is it runs a server on your local system, which is really nice because there's just going to be things, the more advanced you become, you're going to want to know how to run servers locally. So there is this built into, so you actually install it and you run it, and that helps you. It'll show you how to use that. For those of us who have been doing it a little while, we already have this into our systems to where I can go to a directory and just type live server, and that will start a website on my local system. Now, you don't have to do this. The other way you can do this is I could right click and I could say reveal in Finder. Now, Finder is a Mac specific, but file manager if you're on Windows. And then you can find that index file, which we've already seen this when we looked at the HTML and CSS bootcamp, or the course that we did. But what's really nice about running something like Server is that, and you can actually see this since I'm already running it. And let's say I went ahead and did like a H1 hello world. Okay, and if I move back to my browser, then now in this case, this is running it as a file. But if I look at the server, it's already, now I have it open on two different tabs. So notice how it's live server. What it does is it hot reloads, which is a really nice feature. Again, not required. But one of the things you can do, and this is really, depending on your monitor, is you can set up your system to where you could have both, your output over here, and then you could have what you're coding here. Now, in this case, I have my font a little too big, would be a little hard to see it, but sorry, let me minimize. That's what I was trying to do. So it's really nice to have both up. Okay, so for this assignment, I've shown you the general setup. What you're going to want to do is do your first commit at 6 minutes 38. Here's the name I want you to give it. I talked about this in week 4, but I'll reiterate it here. You do the get workflow, the get add, the get commit, and it's not until the end. And I put this in the last one just to kind of help you, remind you, right? So you want to have a commit at each of these places in the video as soon as you get there. And I actually end up modifying because he actually has a time mark down at the bottom. But these are the commits that I want to see you using. Starting flex classes, starting newsletter, starting boxes, finishing the grid, and then pushing. And now this is my message to you, pushing to GitHub, right? So you do all this work. You don't have to push until the end. You can push whenever you want if you want to see that out there um, out on GitHub. But ultimately, what you'll end up giving me is your URL for GitHub. Okay. So I just want you to know that. And one thing, and some of you are already doing this, so it's just good. Let me go ahead and do 92 here, or 82. Is that one thing, and hope Red doesn't remind if I do this, but one thing you want to start giving me is a link to your commit history. Okay. So the link that I just did, so you go to your folder and then you hit on commits, and then that shows me all those commits, and then that's the URL that you give me. Now, if you give me your other one this week, I'll be okay, but I just want you to learn going forward, and especially if you're taking some of my other classes, you'll see me do this. Okay, so that's the first item, the one I've only talked about so far. And now the next two, this one I think should be also kind of fun, which is reading the docs. He actually brings the docs up. And I have a link here. Oh, this actually should have been changed. I changed it to the latest one. Yeah, I'll make sure that gets changed because here is, and I'll make sure this is linked to the latest version. So this is the version 5.1. So we're focusing on version 5 of Bootstrap. And what I want you to do is go through here and find something and implement that into the work that you've already been doing in our Bootstrap location on your private. So first go through here, and he kind of does this with you as well. Like here's some nice components. Let's say you wanted to do a carousel. Okay. So you would look at how do you do the carousel? You would study about it first. And then, pull up copy some code, put it into let me bring it over, right? So somewhere up in this Bootstrap directory here, implement that and note it, right? Somehow give it a note. You might say something like, this would be kind of a logical place to do it, like H1, right? This would be the hands-on work, right? And then you would put in the thing you're going to implement now, your new Bootstrap item. Right now, and by the way, if you want to make a different page, that's cool too, right? And so I want you to play around with now reading the documentation because that's really an important part of any kind of class like this is learning how to read documentation and build something, right? And this is what I'm saying with adding it to your lecture. Once you're done, take a print screen. Now, in this case, because we're all working in this example on our private repos, we can't really share those. And so what you're going to do is take a print screen of your output, right? So if you were over here and you had done something, you take a print screen. And I believe most of you are getting used to this idea that you then put that in your GitHub workflow, you embed it in your output here, right? You can include VS Code if you want to, it's really up to you. So oh yeah, also in your reply, give a link to your Bootstrap item that you've implemented. Write something about why this one was something you selected. What I would really like to see too, and you'll see me start checking timestamps, is like have everybody do something a little different, which makes this a little more interesting. Okay. No replies on that one required. So the next item here, the last one is kind of UTF-8, which is a standard for encoding documents, is something that is used all the time, but I find very rarely talked about. So I want you to watch this video, right? And I want you to go learn more about UTF-8 or character encoding in general. And the idea of an ASCII in Unicode, because Unicode is the new standard we're using to accommodate most of the languages that are readily available today. But at first, watch this and then go do some, extend your knowledge about this. And then in your post here, I want you to show us like what term in here or what concept in here did you take and learn more about. I'm gonna go back here. Did I not require? Because if I didn't, I'm not gonna do it now. But did I not require? Seems like I would have required replies here. Oh, I didn't. Well, look at that. So you have an item where there's no replies required, but I would suggest you go look. I'm actually gonna roll this up so I don't have to keep rolling back and forth since I'm working on a future week, right? And then oh, I'm wrong. I was on the wrong week. So that's the problem with that. It's actually, I was thinking that's not right. Semantic, right? So this one, my bad. Scratch what I just said. My bad. So this last item is something that most of you have seen, but probably don't have an understanding of. And it's basically the way and the numbering system that we use for software. And the semantic versioning is just something you want to understand because people will often refer to some, like when they add a new version of something. So I want you to first watch this video, right? And then I want you to think of some software in your life. Like most of you, I mean, all of us use such a variety of software from our phones to apps on our phone to operating systems to applications, and find the version that you are currently using, right? And then find out a little something about what did they implement. And when you watch this, you start to understand how, when we number uh, versions of software, how that comes to be determined. Okay. So I want you to understand semantic versioning, find something that you use a lot, find out what software version it is, and find a little more information about what was an important update that they did to that version. Oh, and this one was 2 replies. No wonder I thought there were none. Okay, so that gives you your Monday items. I hope that helps you. And then I'll go do a short video for Thursday so you can get going. Talk to you later.